Jason Nichols is a professor at the University of Maryland, and he joins us now. Professor, I can't help but suspect that some of this controversy is being stoked by people who don't want to take accountability for their own failures. There are a lot of places in this country that are not touched by their Confederacy. Detroit, for example. I don't think there are any Confederate statues in Detroit. Detroit's a disaster, and it has been for generations. In a sad way, I say that as an American. And yet the people in charge of Detroit will tell you that the statues in Richmond are the problem, and that's a lie. When are normal people going to call their leaders to account for their failures and stop hiding behind made-up controversies like this?
Well, I think you're mixing two different issues here. I think that there are people who are very concerned about what's going on around the country in cities like Detroit, cities like Baltimore. However, we want symbols in our cities and in our states that show what we want to be as a nation. Not only where we've been, but what is it that we want to be. Those are the kinds of things that you should honor and that you should have as monuments. Now, a monument is different than talking about history. We believe, I think most people believe, that, for example, the Confederacy or Christopher Columbus or all those things certainly belong in books. They certainly belong in museums. Now, do we want to honor what they've done? I think that that's a different story.
Yeah, I mean, I'm partly sympathetic to that. I mean, this paid for with public funds. I wouldn't want to see. I mean, in Detroit, you know, there's a building named after the black separatist mayor, Coleman Young. I would be driven crazy if I had to live near that. I mean, so I kind of get it, okay? Mm-hmm. On the other hand, this is a manufactured crisis. These statues have been here for decades, in some cases centuries. They were there for the duration of Obama's 2 terms. Where were you during that period?
Well, I think they've always been problematic. People have always talked about it. For example, at my university,
no one's pulling them down.
At my university, we have talked about the fact that we wanted to change the names of certain buildings of people who wanted to keep the university segregated for a long time. It took till very recently for those names to change.
Okay,
I think that people on the right haven't been listening.
People have been talking about this stuff. You're right. Okay. They haven't been pulling down statues in the middle of the day. It hasn't dominated MSNBC for a week. I mean, this is not a conversation we're having. This is a moral panic. It came out of nowhere after
it didn't come out of nowhere.
Charlottesville happened, but it's not obvious why the Jefferson Davis Turnpike in Alexandria has to have its name changed a week later, okay? So people have fueled this fire, and my point is, I'm not saying it's totally an illegitimate debate. I don't think it is. I think it's a real debate, okay?
Yeah.
But it's not the core debate. It's not even in the same universe as the core debate.
I think the discussion, oftentimes from people who don't have a certain, or who have a certain level of privilege, is oftentimes, oh, this just came out of nowhere. It was the same thing during the Civil Rights Movement. The Civil Rights Movement, it came out of nowhere. It's these outside agitators. They're making a problem. Good black people have always been okay with that.
You know who has no privilege? The kids in Detroit. Do you know what the test scores are in Detroit? No. Do you know what they are?
Let's talk about the kids in Detroit.
Do you know what the test scores are? Do you have any idea? Because I didn't. I just looked them up.
Do you have any idea that Betsy DeVos changed the school system?
I'm sure it's her fault. It has nothing to do with Betsy DeVos. This has been going on for generations. Okay. And as of right now, 96% of kids in Detroit schools, 96% are not proficient in math, 93% are not proficient in English.
Okay.
So you say, oh, people of privilege don't get... No, those people have no privilege. And the people of privilege, including the representatives and including the Black Caucus and all the people who claim to speak for the people, they don't say squat about that.
I don't think that's
really.
True.
When was the last? Really?
I can't speak.
What's the reason for that? Is that's Betsy DeVos's problem?
Well, I think she's the Secretary of Education. She should be concerned with education around the country, particularly in her home state. But at the same time,
dude, this has been going on for generations, and nobody says squat.
They have
100 people are shot in one day in Chicago, and everyone's like, oh, well, whatever. But the real problem is the Lee statue. Look, I think the Lee statue is a fair conversation, but this is disproportionate, and it's cover for the failures of the leadership class, not just Democrats, either Republicans too, and you're playing along with it.
No. First of all, I've always spoken about things like education, health disparities, other disparities that we have in our society, economic problems. But at the same time...
but they're nothing compared to a statue in Richmond.
No, but of course symbolism matters.
But it doesn't matter as much as 96% who can't pass a math test? Are you joking?
I say we erect a statue, perhaps, of Minister Farrakhan in Chicago. Would you be okay with that?
No.
Well, then why not?
I wouldn't, because I don't like Minister Farrakhan.
But statues don't matter, right?
Symbols don't matter. You're missing it. That's not the point I'm making. I think symbolism does matter. I get spun up about this. I think symbols actually say a lot about who you are and where you're going. I agree with you there.
Okay.
I'm just saying the moral panic around this is manufactured and is diverting attention from the fact that the middle class of the country, including black Americans, are getting poorer. And nobody says anything about it. And I'm just saying that if you're on the activist left, as you are, maybe you should pay attention to things that actually matter.
Well, I think again, if you read my writing, if you read the writing of a lot of other scholars and journalists, they've been writing about what's going on in our major cities, and they've been talking.
They haven't. It's all like, oh, this is the legacy of oppression. It's like, no, these are real.
Absolutely is the legacy of oppression.
But I mean, I'm sure that that's part of it. But when you got 96 or 97% who can't pass a math or English test, there's a lot going on,
Absolutely.
and it needs a thoughtful response, and it needs actual leadership, and nobody's stepping up to do that. And it's totally depressing to me. And after I get mad at the demagogues who are like diverting attention. Oh, be mad about the statues. Don't pay attention to this.
No, but I think the statues, again, as we said, I think both issues are issues. Now, again, I would certainly prioritize something like education over the statues.
Would you? I don't think you would, though. I don't, because I bet you don't have any idea what to do about it. Not that I do, but I mean, you're thinking about this stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, is having teachers' unions making the schools better, do you think?
Well, first of all, I mean, if we're going to talk about education...
No, we don't need to, but you see the point. I mean, I'm not here to grill you on education, but you see the point that, like, there's actual stuff going on. The country really is in trouble, and this is just an MSNBC Democratic Caucus sideshow designed to cloak the reality of it, which is that our leadership class is terrible, and they failed.
I agree. Our leadership class is terrible, starting at the top when we talk about the president.
Yeah, Trump's bad. I agree. Professor, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Anytime, Tucker. Thank you.